Before we jump into the episode today, I want to share something with you from my heart. First of all, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really can't tell you how much your support means to me. We've been doing the podcast now for almost 4 years. I can't even believe it. And I'm so grateful for each and every single one of you that listens, shares an episode with your friends, sends me a DM or a text message letting me know how an episode resonated with you or any aha moments. Seriously, I couldn't be more grateful to be able to create this podcast. It has been such a blessing in my life, and I love hearing the ways it's been able to provide value in yours as well. One thing you might not know is how much work it takes to be consistent with a podcast. In fact, did you know that the majority of podcasts don't make it past episode number 10? And we are well beyond that. And it's just a lot thinking of the episodes, recording them, editing them, managing the guests, making sure that everything runs smoothly and gets uploaded consistently and regularly. And so that's why I have created an amazing opportunity for you to support the podcast monetarily. And in exchange for that, you will get exclusive premium subscriber content. So for as little as $3 a month, you can become a premium subscriber of the podcast. And every month I will upload new voice-guided workouts and breathwork meditation audio for you. So that way you can work out with me, coaching you in your ears. You can also take a moment to reduce your stress and relax and come down and ground down with one of my breathwork audios. So if that is on your heart to support the podcast for as little as $3 a month to become a premium podcast subscriber, I can't tell you how much that means to me and the growth of this podcast. I appreciate you. If you're interested, click the link in the description, become a premium podcast subscriber, new content every month, and while supplies last, I'll send you an exclusive podcast coffee mug so you can have your self-love and sweat coffee every morning. I appreciate you. Now let's get into the show. Welcome to Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast, the place where you'll get inspired to live your life unapologetically, embrace your perfect imperfections, break down barriers, and do what sets your soul on fire. I'm your host, Lunden Souza. Hey friend, it's me, Lunden Souza, online lifestyle transformation coach. I help people all over the world just like you who know they are meant for more, get their mind right and their body tight, and go from crazy busy to crazy happy. And hey, if it's our first time meeting, welcome. So happy to have you. And if you've been with us for a while, it's so great that you're here too. I'm really excited to share this episode of the Self-Love and Sweat podcast with you. Hey everyone, welcome to Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast. Today we have a special guest, Leah Pardee. She's a breathwork guide, alignment mentor, and host of the Bare Naked Soul podcast, which I happened to be a guest on last week, which was so awesome. And she teaches you how to move through fear and tap into present moment magic to live your dream life. Leah is also the author of Heal Your Shit Journal and her newly released memoir, Confessions of an Uncaged Soul. Welcome here, Leah Pardee, and I'm so happy to have you. I've been enjoying your book, Confessions of an Uncaged Soul, so much, and we'll talk about that, more towards the end of this episode, because I know that you have so much expertise and so much to share from your story to your coaching, and I'm just so happy to have you. So welcome. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and what got you into the coaching you are in today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lunden. I'm super excited. Oh gosh. So I feel like where everything kind of started for me was, I was in the corporate world for a long time, and I was really doing the thing. I was excited about it. I really felt like it was something that I loved. Like I thought I loved what I was doing because I was really, really thriving in that hustle environment, and my self-worth was so tied to my results, because I worked in sales, so very results driven atmosphere, very like I was winning awards and, getting promotions. And that was my self-worth. It was entirely wrapped up in my career and how much money I was making and all of that. So when you're so like your entire worth again as a human is tied to something, you kind of convince yourself this is good, even though I had crazy anxiety, I had pain in my chest. I always had neck and shoulder pain. We were talking about this last week. We are 30. I just turned 30 and I had way more aches and pains in my early 20s and in my mid 20s because I was so just riddled with anxiety and I was holding so much in. So that's kind of where I was at. I was a serious perfectionist. Like I thought that was a good thing because that was helping me win, but it was not making me fulfilled and happy. And I was just constantly, I was not in a great place, right? That was kind of my story. And not everyone's corporate story is like that. There's nothing wrong with having that corporate track, and being an entrepreneur doesn't just make you happy overnight, right? But I ended up coming to the realization that this wasn't the only way to live. I came to develop a more spiritual connection. I was starting to learn about like intuition and starting to realize that I didn't have to just be completely obsessed with the outer world, with winning the awards and with how my body looked on the outside and all of that. That didn't have to be what defined me. So I started to meditate and journal, and slowly my life just started transforming. I started to realize I had a lot of beliefs that I just inherited that were really limiting me and holding me back from what I really wanted to do. And stories like I'm not creative, I wasn't smart enough, just all kinds of stories. And so one by one, I just started to let go of those stories and insecurities and started to realize what a life I could live when I wasn't just possessed by my mind all day long. So that was, let's see, maybe around 4 years ago, I started that journey. And eventually it led me to becoming a life coach, starting my podcast, and just turning it into how can I felt a deep calling to like share this with other people because I just watched my life transform so much.
Yes, I love that. And so often with a lot of coaches and experts and these amazing people that, maybe a lot of you listening, we fall in love with. And I love talking with you on your podcast. And I love conversating with you a lot, Leah. And it's like, a lot of the coaches and these amazing people that I get to come in contact with, that's the story. It's like, hey, I was struggling with something. There was a gap. There was something missing. And I, couldn't find answers elsewhere. So I had to kind of figure out what worked for me. And then I started teaching that to others. And that's what I think is so beautiful, is turning our pain into this message and into this coaching style that we get to share with others, which is so amazing. One of the things that you said is like one by one, I started to unravel these stories. I started to take, these limiting beliefs that I inherited, which I love that the word choice that you used, because a lot of the stuff is just like, it's part of us because it was part of us. We grew up that way. There was, whether someone told us that, or that was like the belief in our family, like we inherit a lot of these beliefs. And you said you kind of unraveled them one by one or kind of reversed them one by one. How? Where do we start if we're like, oh, I realize I tell myself this story? How do you unravel it? What would be your way that you could share with us to teach us how to unravel some of those limiting beliefs we might like realize and bump into?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's several tools to use here. I think there's kind of two parts. There's the part where you get out of your head and get into living in the present moment. And so meditation and breathwork are my favorite tools for that. Just because you're basically training your mind, you're training yourself to be able to notice your thoughts. So, I have limiting thoughts, right? I have self-doubt thoughts. But now it's generally, I hear this thought. Oh, I wonder if that girl just doesn't like me, right? I'll have a thought like that. And then I move on because I'm just noticing the thought and letting it pass. I'm not saying I never, become intertwined with a thought, right? Sometimes I do, of course. But back in the day, it was every thought that I had like that would turn into a story. It would be, I wonder if that girl didn't like me. Oh my God, yeah, she probably thinks I'm an idiot. I can't believe it. I shouldn't have said that thing. Like, why did I say that? You make a story out of it. So the whole point with meditation and breath work is to essentially bring you to a point where you're just observing those thoughts. And from there, you can start to say, these are just thoughts. They're not all true. They're certainly not all true. We can all realize that like not all of our thoughts are facts. But when we hear the thought and we just are instantly attached to it, it feels like a fact, right? And then the other half for me is journaling. Like I'm so into journaling. I have the Heal Your Shit journal for this purpose. It really walks you through those limiting beliefs. But I think, just the act of writing down those negative thoughts in a blank journal even. Because when you write it down and you look at it outside of your head, oftentimes it's just, that's all you need to say, wait, that's not true. Wait a minute. I've had this belief my whole life and maybe I don't actually believe that. That's been a thought storming my mind. Maybe that's not true. So you can start to do a lot of that unraveling by simply like writing down these thoughts, asking yourself, is that a fact? Is that really a fact? Is it a fact that it's hard to make a lot of money? Well, are there people who aren't working very hard who make lots of money? Yeah. Are there people working incredibly hard that are janitors and don't make any money? Yeah. So what's a fact here, right? It's discerning between facts and just thoughts and digging through and looking at these. And that's like how I would recommend starting.
Yeah, I love that. Meditation, I've talked a lot about on the podcast and on social media and stuff like that. That was like complete game changer for me. Absolutely complete game changer. Breathwork, I want to talk a lot about today because I think it's really awesome and something we can do anytime and really anywhere. But I love what you said too about, not all of our thoughts are true. Just because we think it doesn't mean we have to believe it, and being the observer and having that awareness is so helpful. And I remember one time I did exactly what you said, where I wrote down in my journal. I don't have that one in front of me right now, or else I would probably read it to you guys. But I wrote down just like all these thoughts and things that were coming out that were pretty negative of like, am I good enough? This was right after I moved back to America from Austria. So going through a lot of changes in identity from the work that I was doing and just a lot of life transitions. And I remember looking at that list and being like, oh my gosh, Lunden, like, it just brings it to life. And it's like a tangible thing when you write it down and you can look at it and you can be like, I just went one by one and I was like, no, I am enough. Yes, I'm good enough to be the coach that I am here. No, I'm not a loser because I moved back to my parents' house in the middle of a pandemic and rearranged my life. There were so many things, like I was talking so much shit to myself, to be honest. And I just like wrote it down and I was like, man, I just looked at it for what it was, and one by one just started, whether it was self-talk or bringing some of those limiting beliefs to my meditation, to my awareness, whatever, was really, really helpful. So I love those 3 tools that you mentioned: meditation, breath work, and journaling. But like I said, the one that I really want to dive into today, because you could do it in the car, you can do it in your bed, you can do it, before you jump on a Zoom call, you can do it when you're in the grocery store, anytime, anywhere, we can come back to that awareness in our breath and in this breath work. So what is breath work? Like, we talk a lot about it. Maybe some people have heard it before. Maybe they've just heard it as like, oh, pay attention to your breathing. But what is breath work?
Yeah. So essentially any type of controlled breathing, any deliberate breathing pattern that we specifically do is breath work. So there's a lot of it in yoga. It can be infused into other modalities and things, but, and there's many different, breath work patterns that we can do, and they have different purposes. There's ones that I do specifically for allergies. I have, pretty bad seasonal allergies. There's kinds that are really, really deep. Like I do a lot of conscious connected breath work, which is you're laying down, you're kind of going through this journey, you're shifting your consciousness, has some similarities even to psychedelics and how that impacts the brain and brings you into this like subconscious state and really releases repressed emotions. One of the big reasons I became breathwork facilitator is I had taught meditation for several years, and people will often say to me, Leah, I can't meditate. You don't understand. I can't meditate. Right. And of course, everyone can meditate. Meditation is just being still and noticing your thoughts. You can do that. Now it may feel crazy because in our society, we're just on our phones 24/7. We're just so busy. The idea of being still even for a few moments can be like very anxiety inducing, right? Because it's not normal to us. It's way out of our comfort zone. But I promise you can meditate. But breath work helps to shut off the default mode network part of the brain, which is responsible for that like monkey mind, that just constant chatterbox, And so doing breath work, and the way that I typically teach it is usually breath work followed by meditation, depending on which kind it is. But that allows you then to be more present, more grounded. You're shutting off that part of the brain that's always chattering. So you're able to go into a meditative state much easier. You're still going to have some thoughts, but maybe you're a little bit detached from that constant stream of overthinking. So it's really great for that, for grounding, for presence. There's so much. There's kind of two sides to it. There's like this health side where it boosts our immune system and helps with our respiratory system, our cardiovascular system. It increases longevity, breathing more air into the lungs increases longevity of our lives and our health. And that is amazing. Increasing your lung capacity is like the number one way to boost longevity. So there's like this whole health side. And then there's also kind of the more energetic side of things, the emotional healing side, the side where you're tapping into those repressed emotions to let them out. So yeah, there's just so much.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you said it's basically like that awareness of the breath and like consciously controlling it. Cause I think that's what's so cool about the breath is like, we can not think about it. And of course, we're breathing when we're sleeping, we're breathing when we're doing other things, but then we can also tap into controlling it and to hold our breath or to do different breathing techniques, durations of inhale and exhale and all those types of things. So I always find breath so cool because it's like you can tap into it whenever you want. And then also when you're done doing the breath work or whatever, you go back into, your breath is just doing its thing. It's on autopilot. It's just happening. We don't have to think about it a lot. So we have the choice to not think about it and let it just happen so we can stay alive. And then we have an option to really tap into awareness when it comes to our breath and controlling that a little bit more. One of the things you mentioned was like immune system. I know a lot of people also come to me and talk about just, being stressed and feel like they're doing all the things. You and I both come from a background of this. It's like continuing part of our work is like, is our worth our work? Our work our worth and our only, end all be all of success, and more is all the things. So what would be some breathing techniques that we could do to boost our immune system and reduce stress? And I know that from my, I would say moderate research into this space. I know you're much more of an expert, but there's different types of breathing, whether you're looking to come down and relax a little bit more or increase energy and focus and things like that. So what are some breathing techniques or things we should know when it comes to using our breath to come down or maybe boost energy a little bit? And maybe what are some that we can maybe do together right now or the listeners listening can do after they listen to this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I just find, it's not shocking, but every time I hear this, I'm just like, whoa. And I'm sure you've heard this too. 70 to 90% of doctor visits, the core, the root problem is stress, So that's mind blowing. So that means we could prevent most things that go wrong with our bodies by reducing stress. And we have control over that. I know it often doesn't feel that way, but we do have control over that. When you have the tools and resources, you can really start to choose to live a life where you don't. One of the beautiful things with breath work is it increases your heart rate variation, your HRV. And that is basically the number of beats in between your heartbeats, the variation in your heartbeats. And so having a higher HRV is very much associated with being a healthier individual overall, having a better immune system, lower stress, so many things, huge marker of health. And so we can increase that with breath work. And what that really means kind of in more like, well, it's not really more in layman's terms, but it's really regulating our nervous system. Because when we get a stressful email, when we get a stressful phone call, when we're in traffic, whatever it is that's stressing us out, our partner did something annoying, our child did something annoying, whatever, our nervous system often goes through its shift, right? And we go into that fight or flight mode. And for most people, this happens every day. Going into fight or flight mode where we start to just experience different symptoms of that. You know, it could be like, for me, it was a lot of like pain, like prickly pain in my chest, you know, shortness of breath, the different things that, you know, they seem really normal to us because this is people's everyday life, fight or flight mode. When you increase your HRV through doing breath work consistently, you become someone who's more able to regulate your own nervous system. You become someone who can be in a traffic jam and not let it shift your body into an unhealthy response of tightening up and clenching and whatever else is happening from fight or flight. So the opposite of that is when we're in that rest and digest mode. We're in our body's natural healing mode. The more time we spend in that natural healing mode, we're not going to get sick as often. You know, we're going to have much lower risks of depression and anxiety. We're going to be healthier, happier people overall when we can be in that nervous system mode of rest and digest and relaxation. And so doing breath work allows you to be more of just a Zen human, just more Zen, more relaxed. And yeah, you're absolutely right. There's different kinds for different things. I love to do an energy boosting session in the morning to really clear a lot of toxins and clear things from my body and get me kind of pumped up. The type that are more relaxing are great if you're experiencing stress, or right before bed. I love to do some of those. I used to have a lot of insomnia, and this breath work has helped me so much with that, and meditation. Something that we could do together. I mean, we'll just do something really, really simple. Some people might be running on a treadmill or driving or whatever. So if this isn't logical for you, don't do it right now. And don't close your eyes if it doesn't seem safe. But if you can, close your eyes and just start to notice your breath for a moment. Notice your shoulders. Relax them down. Sometimes we hold so much tension there. And just start to breathe into the belly, filling it with air. Bring the air all the way to the chest and feel your shoulders open up, your chest expand, and let it out through the mouth. Breathing in through the nose, filling the belly, opening up through the chest, and letting it out. Breathing slow through the nose. You can go ahead and open up your eyes again. And, you know, this is a really, really simple one. That's something that I call like heart chakra cleansing, and just opens up that heart center, restores so much emotional pain. And it's a simple one you can do whenever. You know, something I'd love to tell clients is you put a sticky note somewhere and just make a habit where once a day you do 3 of those big breaths and you let it out. And that can shift your whole energetic state. That can shift your nervous system. Could definitely help with, so many things.
Yeah, even just a few of those breaths there, I could totally feel the difference in just like the calmness and clarity and relaxation. I love how you had us breathe really deep into our bellies, because I feel like we're so often like conditioned to think like, hold your belly in, suck it in, you know, nice and tight core. You don't want to have anything, you know, going over your pants or whatever. And it's like to really breathe deep into that belly space feels so good, and to fill up in our chest and everything too. I really felt my kind of shoulders relax and drop down a little bit there. And so for those of you listening, like Leah shared, it's like, this is not, you need, you know, a full setup, and you need to be, it's like, you can do this anywhere that you can just sit down and close your eyes for a moment. And I love the idea of putting a sticky note somewhere to remind you, or even setting a reminder in your phone. I do that often too. Like I'll pick a random time, just like pick a time, and I'll just put like breathe or go for a walk. Or so I like those reminders there. So even just like a breathe reminder is so helpful. And I love breath for that reason, because it could be on its own worrying about itself. And then you can also bring awareness to it and use it as a super powerful tool. One of the things that you talk about in your book is really like escaping this area of the comfort zone cage and living our dream life. And getting out of your comfort zone has been like something that's so major and so huge in my coaching and in my personal life for a long time. And I even used to host a show a few years back called Seal the Deal with Adidas Runtastic. And at the end, I was always like, my name's Lunden Souza, reminding you that you're never truly living until you're out of your comfort zone. And so meditation can be out of your comfort zone. Doing breath work and things like that, that stillness can be so out of your comfort zone. But how do we escape our comfort zone cage to live our dream life? And how important is it for us to get out of that comfort zone cage?
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's everything. I think any part of your life that you're not loving, you may have a story and all kinds of reasons why it's not working for you. But I really promise there is a part of you that is in your comfort zone cage and doesn't want to leave. And it doesn't really make sense. I mean, an example would be with anxiety. And let's say I'm giving away a little gift in this episode of a free month of the Breath Portal, which is, a whole online library of breathwork videos that you can do. And many of you will take us up on that and hop in there and do some. But, you might have some reasons that come up why you can't, right? Let's use time for an example. People say, I don't have time. I used to say this constantly. I didn't have time. And what I really meant was I'm in my comfort zone. I'm comfortable. Going to the gym, right? It can be uncomfortable. So we say, I don't have time, or we just tell ourselves it'll make more sense for me to start. I'm going to start July 1st. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait till July 1st and then I'm going to start. These are all just reasons. And it's very easy to see them in someone else, excuses, right? It's very easy to see someone else say that they don't have time, and yet they're literally on sending you TikToks all day long, right? It's like you have time for TikTok, but you don't have time for something that's going to take away your anxiety, right? You are in a comfort zone. And so when we're in that, which we all are, I think of the comfort zone as like the comfort zone cage, like a box around us. And we're like, the way to get out of it is you're kind of playing at those edges all the time. You're noticing things that make you nervous, right? You say, I wish I had more friends, but it's impossible to make friends at my age. So I even tried. And then you realize, wait a minute, I'm going to go to that networking event. I'm really nervous to go by myself, but I'm going to go. You're playing at the edges and you eventually move out of the cage. But then there's another cage after that one. It's kind of like new levels, new devils, right? You bust through, you're like, hell yeah, I'm going to go to all these things by myself. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to meditate, whatever. But there's another, there's layers to it. There's layers to our healing and to our growth. It's not a bad thing. It's just that we move through. And then if we want to go to do more, there's another layer to move through after that. But yeah. The thing is, we can live our lives comfortable, even if it means we're in shitty relationships and we are not happy with the way we're treating our body and we have anxiety. But those things are comfortable. That's the thing, is that is comfortable if that is what your normal is. We can live that life, or we can live a life where we are constantly facing our fears, big and small, and saying, you know what? I'm going to do this anyways. I'm going to move through the fear. I don't really want to go to the gym and have everyone's eyes on me. And, I'm going to be nervous and I'm not going to know what to do with that machine, but I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to feel that fear and I'm just going to move through this. It's a much, 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 much better life. And as you move through the fear, every time you do it, it becomes easier and easier and easier and easier. Because you've done it before and you can say, okay, wait, I did that and I didn't die. So I think I can do it again. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. And I love how you said kind of like playing at those edges. It's like once you get out of that particular fear or discomfort or whatever, then there's something else, and it's like peeling back those onion layers. And when you start to see it as enjoyable and fun and necessary for your evolution and your growth and for who you are, it becomes so much more fun. And you want to do it again and you want to do it again, but when you haven't done that before and you don't have that experience of, facing your fears, facing that mirror, stepping out of your comfort zone and then being like you said, hey, I didn't die. The world didn't end. When we don't have enough of those experiences in our belt, then it's hard to look back. So those first couple times, it's going to be scary as fuck. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be all the things. You might notice, oh my God, I'm behaving in all these different ways because I'm just so uncomfortable. But after a while, you get comfortable being in that uncomfortable space and you almost kind of crave it, putting yourself in more new situations, sitting at the table with people who, just believe and think differently than you and being okay with it. There's a lot of cool experiences to be had when we continue to say like, hey, we're not done. If I woke up today, I'm still not done. I'm going to still push those edges a little bit more. So the idea and the lifestyle a lifestyle of getting out of your comfort zone regularly has been so awesome and so helpful and so healing. And that doesn't mean I haven't been scared to step in again. It's just that when I moved to Austria, when I moved back, there were so many different things where I was just like, okay, you did that before, you didn't die, you made it through, you can do this hard thing. Okay, yes, this looks hard, but you climbed that mountain, so you can do that one. And so just continuing to get comfortable being uncomfortable has been so helpful. And I love the way that you really illustrate that in your book, The Confessions of an Uncaged Soul, From Fear to Freedom. And I feel super special because I know I got like an early copy. It has like this thing across the front. So those of you that are listening, you can't see it, but I have her book here. And on the front, it says like, not for resale. She's like, I'm going to give you the book ahead of time. You're going to have like the first copy of it. So this is cool because I loved reading it. And I love the way you write too, by the way, Leah. It's very, for me at least, very readable, like absorbable. I felt like I was just flipping through the pages. I took it with me on the last couple flights I was on. And it's a fun, flowing, easy read, but also there's a lot of stuff that's not so easy in practice, but you make it seem just, it's so comforting to see. When I read your book, it seems very comforting to step out in fear. And to do it anyway. And so I really love how you encourage and kind of push us in this book here. A couple points that a couple things I dog-eared and kind of underlined here that I want to read. One of them is from, which chapter is this? Oh, the chapter is called Just Breathe. And you say, many people switch into fight or flight mode on a daily basis. An angry email from a customer, a presentation in front of a room, traffic jams, family drama, not to mention the deeper stuff like abuse. When these things happen and we don't allow ourselves to feel the emotions, they become stuck in our bodies. These emotions remain beneath the surface until something triggers them. Triggers can be anything that remind us of that first instance, either consciously or subconsciously. They bring forth the emotions we felt the first time around. And once again, we have the chance to feel it and free it. But typically we don't. We shove it back in again, and there it lies dormant, just waiting to be triggered. I loved this because it reminds me of, kind of putting food leftovers like in a Tupperware and like putting it in the back of the fridge and not paying attention to it. And then like that trigger is like, oh, things start to smell. And it's like, what happened? What am I storing that I'm not releasing? And it can be, an angry email. It can be a presentation in front of a room, traffic jam, family dramas. Those are all so many real life examples of stuff that, like you said, oftentimes we experience every single day jumping into this fight or flight mode. So what could be something we could say or inspire, or what would you say to a client, that is in that space where it's like they're ready to not be in that autopilot loop anymore. They're ready to not be always in that fight or flight mode every time they get a message, every time there's drama, every time. In what moment do we know that it's like, okay, this is the moment that it's time to switch or pivot or hire a coach or do things differently? How can we not shove it back in and stick it back in the back of the fridge until it starts stinking?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question. And the first thing it makes me think of is really, it really starts with feeling the feelings. A couple of years ago, I set an intention to every time that I felt triggered, right? And I think everyone kind of knows what being triggered feels like, but it's like, and many people are triggered by the word triggered. I don't know if you've noticed that. People get really annoyed when you talk about that because like, well, I'm allowed to be upset about things. Sure, be upset as much as you want. Here's the thing. Those triggers are a gift. That is like, it's those emotions wanting to come back up to the surface to be released. So feel it. Feel it. I don't think that God designed us to be people that cry, right? That a function is that we cry, but we're not supposed to let it out. We're supposed to just hold it in. That doesn't make any sense. No, I think when you feel like you need to cry, you cry, right? It's okay. Now I get it. If you're at a meeting at work, sure, cry after the meeting if that feels, if that feels like the right thing to do. But what I did for years is I drowned my feelings in wine and I shoved them back with food. And I'd never really let myself cry because crying sounded like weakness to me, and feeling my feelings. I just never wanted to feel angry or anxious. But I promise you, if you start just noticing when you start to feel anxious, when you start to feel angry, any trigger, when you start to feel upset, embarrassed, shame, whatever it is, when that comes up, that's all you need to do is notice that it's coming up, right? Which is pretty easy. This is what happened to you today or tomorrow, right? Something will come up. All you have to do is feel it. All you have to do is say, oh, something's happening in my body. I wonder what this will be like, and let it happen. Because we're so afraid of our emotions, and it's a very cultural thing. Our emotions are considered weak, especially in the States. It's weakness. It's, we're taught as children, don't cry, be a big girl, be a big boy, suck it up, especially for men. Dear God. All we need to do is say to ourselves, it's okay that I'm experiencing this anxiety. Let me feel this, and just observe it and feel it. Same with physical pain. Now when I like stub my toe, I sit there and I feel it, which the opposite would be getting obsessed with thoughts about it. Fuck, why did this happen to me? I have to go to this meeting right now. It's going to make me late. I can't believe this happened. Same with anxiety. If anxiety is coming up, the scary thing is actually the thoughts around it. Oh my gosh, what if I'm never happy again? I can't believe, why do I always feel this way? Like, why did that person say it to me? This shouldn't have happened. Those aren't helpful. So letting go of your thoughts, breathe, and literally focus your awareness on the feeling, the pain in your chest, the feeling. It's going to pass, and it's going to actually move through and out of your body. It's not as scary as we think, right? The thoughts make everything so much worse. Mm-hmm. When you actually turn into your body and you just feel the feeling and you let it go and you let it out, not only is it not as scary as we think it's going to be, but now you come to this sense of peace. It's, okay, I've let it out. Wow. And now I'm okay. And when you start doing that on a regular basis, you're letting out the scientific thing is like the neuropeptides that are in our body that are a thought turned into matter. It's a chemical reaction based on our thoughts. And those are, harvested in our body. They turn into dis-ease, right? They're stuck there. And when we start to just let them out as they become triggered, well, now you're freeing yourself from all these bits of pain that have been stuck inside of your body. And that is truly like awakening to your happiest life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really feeling what it feels like to be angry or sad or jealous or upset or frustrated, and focusing on that feeling, coming back into our body. Like, where is it? Can I breathe into it? Like, a lot of that has been super helpful. Versus, like you said, the thoughts can be paralyzing. Like, you can go into a, downward spiral, and to kind of shift that more into an upward spiral. It's just like, hey, what does this feel like? Where is it? Where is it coming from? And just allowing yourself to sit with it. I find that makes it pass and go on its merry way a lot quicker than when you go in that spiral of bringing your thoughts to the table with the emotion and all of that together. It can be really intense and messy. And so I prefer to do what you said too. And it is challenging. And sometimes we do sit with some of those fears and that angst when we never have before, when we're used to numbing it out with wine or food or even exercise, over exercising. I did that too. It's just like we can just cover it up and muffle it until eventually it's going to come back again and invite itself to be re-triggered and show up again too. And so just sitting with that feeling, I find a couple minutes, it's usually made its way. Another part of your book that I loved, this was actually my favorite part, in Just Dance, the chapter called Just Dance. And you said, but I made... Oh, I'm going to go up a little bit. So you say, believe me, I feel fear quite freaking often, especially in those moments. But I made a decision long ago that I do the things I desire to do, even if I'm afraid, that I'll follow my heart right into the proverbial dance floor. I made a decision to dance with fear. I love that. Most people will run away from fear or blame when they're in this space of fear. And, not that many people make that choice to dance with their fears. So what is that? Talk to us about that a little bit, and how can we learn to see that as more of a dance rather than, fists up, ready to go, or, with that Tupperware ready to capture it and put it away with wine or food or whatever we decide to numb it out with. How do we know, or let's say, how do we get to dance with fear? And then how do we know if we are dancing with fear?
Yeah. So I love that you mentioned that when you have the pain that comes up, that you're feeling the anxiety, the anger, you mentioned that it goes away in just a few minutes. But isn't that surprising? Because, when I started doing this, it feels like it'll take hours, right? We don't know how long we don't know what's going to happen. It goes away very quickly. Sometimes even faster than a few minutes, sometimes longer, right? I have days where I'm in a rage all day long because I let myself, if I need to rage all day long and scream into pillows, I do it. But same thing comes with dancing with fear. We go and do something scary, and we don't know how long we're going to be afraid. We don't know how long we're going to have our racing heart. We don't know how long we're going to feel this way. It's generally not as bad as you think. And think about it. Aren't most things not as bad as you thought they were going to be? Like, our mind is our worst thing. It just makes everything worse. It makes everything more dramatic. Yeah, how many times have you said to yourself, that wasn't as bad as I thought? Probably millions of times. So dancing with fear, first of all, for me, it's about recognizing that fear is just a human emotion. And emotions aren't bad. Like, emotions aren't bad. When I have an angry rage fest day, that's not a bad thing. Not to me. I don't think it's bad. It's me being a human. How could that be bad, right? Me being afraid of something isn't bad unless it's actually a car that's about to hit me or something like that, right? If it's a desire that you have, and I love to talk about the desires versus the shoulds. I think sometimes people aren't sure if they really want to do something or not, because like we talked about, the comfort zone is going to hold you back from doing those things. How do I know if I really want to do it? Well, does it feel like a should? I should, I should drink green smoothies every morning. If you're doing that as out of a should, then it might not be a desire. But if it's like, ooh, yeah, I really love a green smoothie. It just feels so fresh and refreshing and delicious. Great. Noticing where your shoulds are and where your desires are is a great place to start, because if you're honest with yourself about your desires, there's things you want to do that you're holding back on because you're afraid, right? And so once we know that it's something we do desire to do, we really want to do this thing, but we're afraid, remembering that it's not going to be, it depends on the thing, but it's not going to be like we're afraid for like hours on end. I love to teach people to start small. Maybe it's asking that girl that you've been admiring out to lunch, right? Maybe it's asking a guy on a date. Maybe, little things where if they say no, okay, that's going to be a very short-lived feeling that you have to experience of rejection, right? Start small. Start with little things. Oh, you really like that woman's skirt in the grocery store, but you're like nervous to walk up and tell her. Walk up and tell her. Practice just feeling the fear and noticing how quickly it goes away. Because sometimes things won't work out, and sometimes things will be, there'll be a rejection involved. And that's okay. And you can notice how quickly that'll shift out of you. But I think really looking at emotions as not bad things, as just part of life, welcoming them, even dancing with them. They're okay. They're fine. Fear, just a part of being a human. I'm okay with it. Can you be okay with it? And if you can, your life's about to get a lot more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. About to get a lot more interesting. And yeah, I love, the idea of practicing. You're just like, okay, if this makes me nervous. I remember as a kid, I was always really outspoken. If we did like a school performance or something, I was like the one in the front always. My brother was very different, and he would get so nervous, and he would like chew on the buttons on his shirt and get like a red face and cry and just be so nervous. And I remember, my mom, she didn't go and put him on like acting classes. She would go have him as a kid pay the waitress. She would have him take the little tab to the waitress and say, here's the money, and give it to her. And that made him so nervous. But that was like the first step I remember my mom like encouraging him to do. Not everybody needs to be a ham on stage, but she realized, oh, this is something that's really making him nervous. Let's do little things. So I'm going to have him take the change to the waitress and just wait, or take the money to the waitress and wait for the change. And I remember as a kid, even watching him and just being super nervous, and then overcoming it. And eventually he would be, he'd go and talk to her or whatever. And that was just an experience as a kid that kind of came up when you were mentioning it. But it's like, even as adults, there's so many moments where it's like, hey, I want to get here, but it doesn't mean you need to, immediately jump in that direction. It's like, okay, can you ask that person out? Can you compliment that person? Can you share your opinion, when you're in a work meeting and they're asking people for feedback, but you always hold back because you don't want to sound stupid or weird. Can you just put out your feedback or your info? Like, everyone listening can probably think of that one little thing that you're afraid to do, or it makes you nervous, anxious, whatever. Go out and do it. Go out and push, go out and dance with fear a little bit, kind of grab fear by the hand and be like, okay, I'm a little bit afraid, but I want to show up and do it anyway. And like you said, you're in for an awesome surprise in life when I feel like we're in the cage and we also hold the key. So it's like, you're not like no one put you there. Like, you can take your key out and unlock it. You have easy access, whatever. Maybe it's a thumbprint key in your cage. Like, you have in and out, privileges. You put yourself there and you have the key to it. So if you really want to unlock that cage and open, it's about doing things that make you uncomfortable, that help you face your fears even more. And one of the things that's helped a lot about doing things when I'm afraid is connecting with others, having these conversations on my podcast with other guests who have overcome so much and have shown up. Like, that helps me. And then sharing, my discomforts and fears that I've overcome, and also ones I haven't yet overcome yet, sharing those with others, getting coaching, feeling connected and in community is really helpful too. Now, we have to do the work ourselves, right? I mean, I can't tell Leah, hey, will you do my breath work for me? Will you do my meditation? But it's nice to have friends that are also practicing showing up to dance with fear and to live an uncaged life, as you call it, because then it's like, okay, I'm not in the arena by myself. Yeah, I need to do the work on my own and no one's going to do it for me. And I have people around me to support me, and I'm not going to fall, as long as I keep communicating and keep that connection alive, which is why I love these conversations on the podcast, which is why I love having coaches, which is why I love coaching people too. Because it's just like, okay, like, I'm there in your corner, you'll be in the arena, but when you come back after that, that fight or that round or whatever, I'll be the one, where I have people in my corner, massaging me and kind of there to pump me back up to get out into the arena. So don't discount your connections and community and being, with a coach or working with someone like Leah, because it's so helpful to have someone there on your journey with you so that you feel supported when you're going out and you're pushing your limits and you're pressing the edges of the box, or you're doing your dance with fear for that particular day. So don't discount that too. Leah, it's been so awesome having you here. And I know that you have some freebies for everyone to access some of the breath work with you. And I know that everyone listening wants to connect with you even further. So let us know where we can find you and tell us about your free gift.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Lunden. This conversation is so beautiful. And I love when you said you're in the cage, but you have the key. Like, that's right. That's right. You have the key. I love that. So I'm on Instagram. It's Leah Pardee. You can just search my name basically anywhere. My podcast is Bare Naked Soul. And then I have the Breath Portal, which is my membership site for breathwork and meditation. So it's essentially an online library, tons of videos. Some are 10 minutes long. You need that quick fix. And then there's ones that are an hour. There's workshops. There's journaling workshops involved. And so we're giving you guys a free month. So I think that Lunden will provide the link, but it's also, the code will be a free month. So if you, it's worth checking out. It's worth taking a shot on yourself to see what happens when you start to get really intentional about using your breath as a tool that, like Lunden mentioned, you have it all the time, and when you learn how to use that to your advantage, you can tap into it to ground yourself and relax your nervous system anytime, anywhere. So yeah, hope to see you guys in there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leah, for your expertise and your time and your energy and your free gifts. I'll definitely be tapping into the breath portal to check it out because, yeah, like you said, 5 or 10 minutes here and there can definitely make a big difference. And all the things that Leah mentioned, I'll link in the description and show notes so you guys can easily connect with her on Instagram, the breath portal, and check out her books and things like that. So thank you so much for being here, Leah. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast. Hey, do me a favor. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, give us a review. This really helps a lot. And share this with a friend. I'm only one person, and with your help, we can really spread the message of self-love and sweat and change more lives all around the world. I'm Lunden Souza, reminding you that you deserve a life full of passion, presence, and purpose, fueled by self-love and sweat. This podcast is a Hit Spot Austria production.